My uncle mailed me premium milkshake mix for my restaurant. I texted a photo of the dish I created with it. He called screaming, "Did you serve that to customers?" The phone rang at 11:34 a.m. on a Thursday. I was in the kitchen at Ember and Oak, my restaurant in downtown Portland, prepping for lunch service. 12 tables already reserved, staff moving through their stations, the smell of fresh bread and roasting vegetables filling the air. I just posted to Instagram a gorgeous photo of our new signature dessert, a deconstructed milkshake tart with vanilla cream, caramelized bananas, and the artisan milkshake powder my uncle had sent me last week. The post was already getting traction. 43 likes in 10 minutes. 3 comments asking if we delivered. Then my phone lit up with Uncle Raymond's name. I smiled, expecting him to congratulate me on the creative use of his gift. I answered on speaker while I plated another tart. "Hey, Uncle Ray, did you see the post? Your milkshake mix is incredible. The customers are going crazy for it." Silence. Then a sound I'd never heard from him before. A strangled, desperate noise somewhere between a gasp and a scream. "Leo," he said, his voice shaking so badly I barely recognized it. "Tell me you didn't serve that to customers. Please tell me you didn't actually serve that." I stopped plating. My sous chef, Adrian, looked up from the grill. "What do you mean? Of course I served it. That's what you sent it for, right? For the restaurant?" "Oh my God." His voice cracked completely. How many people? How many people ate it?" My stomach dropped. The kitchen suddenly felt too hot, too loud, too bright. "Uncle Ray, what's wrong? What's in it?" He was breathing hard now, ragged gasps like he'd been running. "How many, Leo? I need to know right now how many people consumed that powder." I looked at Adrian, at the other line cooks staring at me now, at the 12 tarts I'd already sent out to the dining room. "Maybe 30 people since we opened this morning. We started serving it at breakfast. We've been promoting it all week. Uncle Ray, what the fuck is going on?" He hung up, just disconnected. The dial tone buzzed in my ear while I stood there with a spatula in my hand and my heart hammering against my ribs. Adrian set down his tongs. "Chef, what was that about?" I didn't answer. I was already running into the dining room. I'm Leo Fitzgerald, 32 years old, owner and head chef of Ember and Oak. I'd opened the restaurant 18 months ago with my life savings, a business loan, and everything I'd learned from 12 years working in kitchens across the country. Started as a dishwasher at 16 in a diner in Beaverton. Worked my way up through prep cook, line cook, sous chef. Spent 2 years at a Michelin-starred restaurant in San Francisco learning technique. Another year in New York studying under a James Beard nominee. Portland was my home, the place I'd always wanted to return to, and this restaurant was my dream. Farm-to-table cuisine, seasonal ingredients, creative presentation. We'd gotten a rave review from the Oregonian 6 months after opening. Food critic Daniel Kemp, 30 years covering Portland's culinary scene, had called us the most exciting new restaurant in the Pacific Northwest. We were booked solid most nights. We had a waiting list for weekend reservations. I was finally making it work. Finally proving that a kid from a working-class family could build something beautiful. Uncle Raymond was my mother's older brother, 61 years old, lived in Seattle, worked in pharmaceutical sales for 30 years before retiring early. We'd always been close. After my dad died when I was 7, Raymond had stepped in, taught me to drive, helped me with homework, showed up to my high school graduation when my mom was too drunk to attend. He'd helped me through culinary school when my parents couldn't afford it, co-signed my first apartment lease, showed up to every soft opening and tasting menu event. When I'd been struggling to get the restaurant loan approved, Raymond had written a personal check for $50,000 as part of my down payment. "Consider it an investment in your future," he'd said. "I believe in you, Leo. You're going to be great." When the package arrived last Friday with a note saying, "Premium milkshake mix, thought you could create something amazing with this. Love, Uncle R," I'd been touched, excited. The powder looked professional, expensive. Fine white granules with a subtle vanilla scent. I'd spent the weekend developing the recipe, testing flavor combinations, perfecting the presentation. The tart had come together beautifully. Vanilla cream base made with the powder, caramelized bananas, crushed graham crackers, a drizzle of salted caramel. I'd tested it on my staff. Everyone loved it. Never once questioned what was actually in that powder. The dining room was full. Couples, business lunches, a family with 2 kids at the corner table, a group of tourists who'd read about us in a travel blog. I scanned the faces looking for signs of distress. Everyone seemed fine. Normal. Eating, talking, laughing. But Uncle Raymond's panic echoed in my head. I walked to table 6 where a woman in her 30s had just finished her tart. "Excuse me, how are you feeling? Any unusual symptoms? Nausea? Dizziness? Anything strange?" She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "I feel fine. The dessert was delicious. Is something wrong?" I forced a smile. "No, just checking. We're very attentive to our guests." I checked 3 more tables. Everyone was fine. Maybe Uncle Raymond had made a mistake. Maybe he'd panicked for nothing. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Then I saw the couple at table 9. The man was sweating. His face had gone pale, and he was gripping the edge of the table. His wife was calling my server over, her voice rising with worry. "Excuse me, I think my husband needs help. He's not feeling well." I ran over. The man looked up at me with glazed eyes, pupils dilated so wide his eyes looked black. "I feel really strange," he said. His words were slightly slurred. "My heart is racing. I can feel it pounding in my chest. I can't catch my breath. What was in that dessert?" His wife grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "What's happening to him? We need to call an ambulance. Michael, look at me. Michael!" But Michael wasn't looking at her. He was staring at his hands, turning them over slowly, like he'd never seen them before. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, gave them the address, described the symptoms. The operator asked what the man had eaten. I looked at the empty dessert plate on the table, the deconstructed milkshake tart, my creation, my signature dish, made with Uncle Raymond's gift. "I don't know," I said. My voice sounded distant, disconnected. I don't know what he ate. But I did know. I knew exactly what he'd eaten. And whatever was in that powder, it was hurting him. Before the ambulance arrived, 2 more customers started showing symptoms. A woman at table 14 said her heart was racing and she felt like she couldn't sit still. She kept standing up, sitting down, pacing beside her table. Her business associate looked concerned but was also starting to sweat, his leg bouncing rapidly under the table. Then a college-age girl at the bar started hyperventilating, gasping that she felt like she was going to die, that something was terribly wrong, that her chest was going to explode. My head server, Melissa Thompson, 15 years in the restaurant industry, grabbed my shoulder. "Chef, what the hell is going on? What's in those tarts?" I couldn't answer, couldn't form words, because I had no idea what I'd served these people, only that Uncle Raymond's panic had been justified, and that something was very, very wrong. The other diners were starting to notice. People were standing, backing away from their tables, looking at their own half-eaten desserts with suspicion and fear. Someone said, "Is the food poisoned?" Someone else was already on their phone, filming. The ambulance arrived 8 minutes later. 2 paramedics rushed in with equipment bags and a stretcher. The lead paramedic, Thomas Brennan, 11 years with Portland Fire and Rescue, assessed the man from table 9 first, checked his pulse, his blood pressure, his pupil response. Heart rate is 140. Blood pressure is elevated. Pupils massively dilated. How long ago did he consume the food? I looked at the timestamp on my POS system. About 25 minutes ago. Brennan looked at his partner. Possible stimulant ingestion. We need to transport. They loaded Michael onto the stretcher while his wife climbed in beside him, crying. Then they came back for the woman from table 14. By the time they left, there were 3 ambulances outside my restaurant, and the local news had arrived. A reporter named Jessica Kim from Coin 6, 7 years covering Portland Metro News, was already setting up her camera on the sidewalk. I watched through the window as she started her stand-up. Behind me, emergency crews are responding to a mass medical incident at Ember and Oak Restaurant, where multiple diners have fallen ill after eating the same menu item. The health department showed up 40 minutes later. Inspector Carol Brennan, 23 years with the Oregon Health Authority, walked in with a clipboard and an expression that told me my day was about to get much worse. She was a solid woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen every kitchen nightmare imaginable. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I need you to shut down service immediately and show me your kitchen." I led her back through the swinging doors. Adrian and the other cooks stood frozen at their stations. The prep cook, a young guy named Luis, who'd just started last month, looked like he was going to be sick. Brennan walked straight to the dessert station where I'd been working. She looked at the tarts, at the container of milkshake mix, at the recipe card I'd written out in my own handwriting. "What is this powder?" she asked, pointing at the unmarked white container. "It was a gift from my uncle. He said it was premium milkshake mix, artisan quality." She pulled on latex gloves and opened the container. Scooped a small amount into a sample bag. "Did it come with any documentation? Ingredient list? Manufacturer information?" My hands went cold. "No, just a note saying it was milkshake mix. I trusted him. He's my uncle. He's helped me build this restaurant." Brennan sealed the bag and looked at me with something between pity and disgust. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm ordering an immediate closure until we can test this substance and determine what's making your customers sick. Do not serve any more food. Do not use any ingredients from this container. And I strongly suggest you contact a lawyer." She pulled out her phone and made a call. Within minutes, 2 more inspectors arrived. They photographed everything. The container, the remaining tarts, my recipe cards, the prep station. They bagged samples of every ingredient I'd used. They interviewed my staff one by one. Luis admitted he'd thought the powder smelled strange when I'd first opened the container last Friday. "Kind of chemical-like under the vanilla," he said. But Chef seemed confident, so I didn't say anything. Melissa told them I'd seemed unusually energetic all weekend. He was here until 3 in the morning on Saturday working on the recipe. That's not totally unusual for Chef, but he seemed wired, like he couldn't stop moving. I realized with growing horror that I'd been exhibiting symptoms too. The jittery energy I'd attributed to excitement, the inability to sleep, the racing thoughts. I'd consumed the powder while testing the recipe. The restaurant went dark at 1:15 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. I sent the staff home with full pay, though I had no idea how I'd make payroll next week if we stayed closed. Locked the doors. Posted a sign saying we were closed due to a health inspection. Then I sat alone in the empty dining room and tried to call Uncle Raymond. He didn't answer. I tried again, again. Straight to voicemail every time. Each time it went to his cheerful recorded message. "You've reached Raymond Fitzgerald. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you." But he wouldn't get back to me. He was hiding, running, and I was left sitting in my restaurant, watching my dream die in real time. By 3 p.m., the first news article went live. Popular Portland restaurant closed after multiple diners fall ill. By 4 p.m., my phone was exploding with calls from regular customers asking if they should be worried, from reporters wanting statements, from health department officials demanding documentation I didn't have. By 5 p.m., I knew my restaurant was finished. Even if the health department cleared us, even if whatever was in that powder turned out to be harmless, the damage was done. People had been taken away in ambulances. It had been filmed. It had been posted online. The video was already going viral. Portland chef serves mystery substance to unsuspecting diners. My business partner, Christine Navarro, called me at 6 p.m. She'd invested $100,000 in the restaurant, owned 30% of the business. "Leo, what the fuck happened today? I've been fielding calls from investors all afternoon. They're talking about pulling out. They're saying this is a liability nightmare." I told her everything I knew, which wasn't much. A gift from my uncle, customers getting sick, a health inspection that had shut us down. "Your uncle?" She sounded incredulous. "You used an unlabeled substance from a non-commercial source in a dish you served to customers? Leo, that's insane. That's culinary malpractice. We could lose everything." "I know." My voice was hollow. I trusted him. "Well, your trust just cost us our restaurant. I'm talking to my lawyer tomorrow. We need to figure out how to protect ourselves legally. And Leo, don't talk to anyone. Not the press, not the health department, not anyone without a lawyer present." She hung up. Our friendship, built over 5 years of working together in San Francisco, was over. I'd destroyed it in one morning by trusting the wrong person. I drove to my apartment in a daze, a one-bedroom place in the Pearl District that I could barely afford on a chef's income, but I'd wanted to live downtown, close to the restaurant, close to the dream. Sat on my couch in the dark and tried to understand what had happened. Uncle Raymond had sent me something. I'd used it in my cooking. People had gotten sick. The sequence of events was clear, but the reason behind it made no sense. Why would he send me something dangerous? Why would he panic when I told him I'd used it? Unless he hadn't meant for me to use it at all. Unless it wasn't actually milkshake mix. Unless the whole thing had been a terrible mistake. Or worse. Unless it had been intentional. Unless my restaurant had been a convenient cover for something else entirely. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Mr. Fitzgerald? This is Detective James Sullivan with the Portland Police Bureau, Major Crimes Unit. I need to ask you some questions about the incident at your restaurant today." Detective Sullivan and his partner, Detective Nina Kowalski, showed up at my apartment at 6:30 p.m. Sullivan was in his 50s, gray hair, tired eyes that had seen too much, 26 years on the force. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a man who knew rushing never helped. Kowalski was younger, maybe 40, sharp and intense with dark hair pulled back tight, 14 years in major crimes. She was the one who did most of the talking. They sat across from me in my living room and pulled out notebooks. "Walk us through exactly what happened," Sullivan said. His voice was surprisingly gentle. I told them everything. The package arriving last Friday via courier. Uncle Raymond's note. The recipe I'd developed over the weekend. The Instagram post this morning. The phone call at 11:34 a.m. His panic. The customers getting sick. Sullivan wrote it all down in careful, precise handwriting. Kowalski watched my face the entire time, studying every expression. "This uncle of yours," she said. "Raymond Fitzgerald. What does he do for a living?" "He worked in pharmaceutical sales for 30 years. Retired about 5 years ago. He lives in Seattle, in a nice house in Queen Anne. Drives a Mercedes. Plays golf at a country club." "And he sent you an unmarked container of white powder with no ingredient list, no manufacturer information, nothing identifying what it actually was?" Put that way, it sounded insane, criminally negligent. "He said it was milkshake mix, premium, artisan quality. I trusted him. He's helped me build my whole life." Kowalski leaned forward. "Mr. Fitzgerald, the hospital just called. All 3 patients who were transported from your restaurant tested positive for amphetamine compounds in their bloodstream. High concentrations. Methamphetamine, to be specific." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Methamphetamine, meth, crystal. The drug that destroyed lives and families and entire communities. "That's impossible," I said. My voice sounded far away. It was milkshake mix. It tasted like vanilla and sugar. I tested it myself when I was developing the recipe. I would have known if it was drugs. "You consumed this substance?" Sullivan asked, looking up from his notes. "A small amount, just to taste it, to calibrate the recipe. Maybe a teaspoon total over the weekend." "And you didn't experience any unusual symptoms? Increased heart rate, elevated energy, insomnia, loss of appetite?" I thought back to last weekend, the hours I'd spent in the restaurant kitchen perfecting the tart, The way I'd worked until 2 a.m. on Saturday without feeling tired. The jittery energy I'd attributed to excitement about the new dish. The fact that I'd barely eaten all weekend, too focused on work to feel hungry. The way my mind had raced through dozens of recipe variations. Oh God. I thought I was just excited, I whispered. I thought it was the creative process, the passion for a new dish. Kowalski nodded slowly, and I saw confirmation in her eyes. Mr. Fitzgerald, methamphetamine mixed with vanilla and sugar would be very difficult to detect by taste, especially in small quantities. The vanilla would mask the chemical taste. The sugar would provide sweetness. And if you were consuming it while working, your brain would attribute the symptoms to normal chef behavior. Long hours, high energy, intense focus. She pulled out a folder. We're going to need you to come to the station. We need a formal statement. We need contact information for your uncle. We need the packaging the powder came in, the note, any communication you've had with him. And Mr. Fitzgerald? She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. We need to know if you have any idea why Raymond Fitzgerald would send you a container of what appears to be pharmaceutical-grade methamphetamine disguised as milkshake mix. The police station was cold and institutional, and I sat in an interview room for 3 hours, answering the same questions over and over. The walls were painted that depressing beige color that exists only in government buildings. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A camera in the corner recorded everything. Where did the package come from? Seattle, via courier service. When did it arrive? Last Friday afternoon. What time? Around 4 p.m. Did you recognize the handwriting on the note? Yes, it was Uncle Raymond's distinctive scrawl. He'd written it in the same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards and Christmas presents my whole life. Had he ever sent you anything like this before? No, never. He'd sent gifts, but always clearly labeled commercial products. Wine, kitchen equipment, specialty ingredients from reputable suppliers. Do you have any reason to believe he would want to harm you or your business? No, absolutely not. He loved me. He'd helped me build the restaurant. He'd been at the opening night with champagne and flowers. He'd introduced me to investors. He'd co-signed my business loan. Why would he send me drugs? Sullivan came back into the room at 9 p.m. with a file folder. Kowalski was with him, carrying 2 cups of terrible coffee. They set one in front of me. I wrapped my hands around it for warmth. We ran the substance through our lab, Sullivan said. It's methamphetamine. High purity, pharmaceutical grade, 94% pure with vanilla flavoring and powdered sugar mixed in. Street value of what you had in that container is approximately $80,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $80,000. I'd been cooking with $80,000 worth of meth. I'd been serving it to customers. I'd posted it on Instagram with a cheerful caption about new seasonal desserts. I'd promoted it on the restaurant's website. I'd sent samples to food bloggers. I didn't know, I said. My voice sounded hollow, mechanical. I swear to God I didn't know what it was. We believe you, Sullivan said. He opened the folder and spread out several photographs. But we need to find your uncle. We've been calling the number you gave us. No answer. We sent units to his address in Seattle. The house is empty. Looks like he left in a hurry. Clothes still in the closet, food in the refrigerator, but his car is gone and neighbors haven't seen him since yesterday. Kowalski pulled out another set of photos. Mr. Fitzgerald, we need to show you something. Your uncle has been under federal surveillance for 6 months. She slid the photos across the table. Raymond meeting with a man in a parking garage. Raymond handing over a package to someone in a car. Raymond sitting at a coffee shop with someone who looked like a criminal, all tattoos and hard edges. The DEA has been building a case against a pharmaceutical theft ring operating out of Seattle. Someone's been stealing prescription amphetamines from medical supply warehouses and reselling them on the black market. Your uncle has been identified as a mid-level distributor. We think he was using his pharmaceutical sales background to access the drugs and his retirement as cover for the distribution network. I stared at the photos. This couldn't be the same man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd shown up to my high school football games, who'd cried at my culinary school graduation. That's impossible, I said. He's retired. He lives in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. He golfs. He volunteers at a food bank. He's not a criminal. We have surveillance photos spanning 4 months, Kowalski said gently. We have financial records showing deposits that don't match his pension income. $300,000 in unexplained income over the past 2 years. We've been building a case for months, and now he's sent a significant quantity of product to you, probably trying to use your restaurant as a distribution point or a storage location, and when you actually used it instead of holding it for him, he panicked. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. The unmarked container, the vague note that didn't actually say what the powder was, the panic when I'd told him I'd served it to customers. He'd been using me. My restaurant, my dream, my life's work had been a convenient cover for his drug operation. A downtown Portland restaurant with a young chef owner, regular deliveries, lots of foot traffic, the perfect place to move product. And I'd been too trusting, too grateful, too blind to see it. What happens now? I asked. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee cup before I spilled it. Now we find him, Sullivan said. And you cooperate fully with our investigation. If you do that, if you help us build our case and testify if it goes to trial, we can probably keep you from facing charges. The DA understands you were manipulated. But if you protect him, If you try to help him hide, you become an accomplice. Do you understand? I understood. I was either a victim or a criminal. The choice was mine. They released me at 11 p.m., with instructions not to leave the city and to contact them immediately if Uncle Raymond tried to reach me. I drove home through empty streets, Portland at night looking different now. Darker, more threatening, like I'd never really seen it before. I sat in my dark apartment and stared at my phone, waiting for it to ring, waiting for Uncle Raymond to call and explain, to tell me this was all a misunderstanding, to make it make sense. The call came at 2:30 a.m. I'd been dozing on the couch, exhausted but unable to actually sleep, when the phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Leo. His voice was rough, strained. Don't hang up, please. I need to explain. Where are you? I asked. My voice was cold. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't find me for a while. He took a shaky breath. Leo, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. The package was supposed to go to a different address. I wrote down the wrong number on the courier form. It was supposed to go to my business partner, not to you. You destroyed my life, I said flatly. You sent me drugs disguised as a gift. You let me serve them to innocent people. You ruined everything I'd built. I know. And I'll make it right. I have money. I can pay for the lawsuits, the loans, everything. Just don't talk to the police. Please, Leo. You're my nephew. Your family. I laughed. Actually laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. You stopped being family the day you used me as a drug mule. There was silence on the line. Then he said, in a voice I'd never heard from him before, cold and calculating, think about what you're saying. Think about what happens if you cooperate with them. They'll dig into everything. Your restaurant financing. That $50,000 I gave you for the down payment. Where do you think that money came from, Leo? My blood went ice cold. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you testify against me, they're going to discover that your restaurant was partially funded with drug money. That makes you complicit. That makes you part of the operation whether you knew it or not. So maybe we should both just disappear. Come with me. I have contacts. We can start over somewhere they won't look. I hung up. Immediately called Detective Sullivan. Told him about the call, about Raymond's threat, about the $50,000 investment. Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we'll need to investigate the source of that money. If it was illegal, the restaurant could be subject to asset forfeiture. I'm sorry, Mr. Fitzgerald. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I spent that night on my couch, not sleeping, just staring at the ceiling and watching my entire life unravel. Not just the restaurant, everything. If the $50,000 had been drug money, if my entire business had been built on criminal proceeds, I could lose it all. The building, the equipment, everything I'd worked for. By morning, the story had exploded. Portland chef allegedly serves meth-laced desserts to unsuspecting diners. The headline was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, local news, national news. CNN picked it up. Fox News ran a segment. My face was in the articles, screenshots from my restaurant's website, photos from the Instagram post that had started this nightmare. The comments section was brutal. Thousands of people weighing in on my stupidity, my criminality, my alleged involvement. He knew what he was doing. Nobody's that stupid. He should go to prison for attempted murder. This is why you don't trust anyone. The food bloggers I'd sent samples to were posting furious takedowns. The investors Christine had brought in were calling lawyers, and my phone kept ringing with numbers I didn't recognize, reporters looking for statements, people looking for answers I didn't have. 3 customers filed lawsuits by Friday afternoon. Michael from Table 9 sued for $2 million. Personal injury, emotional distress, reckless endangerment, loss of enjoyment of life. His wife filed a separate suit for loss of consortium. The woman from Table 14 sued for $1.5 million. The college girl sued for $3 million, claiming the incident had triggered PTSD and she'd had to drop out of school. My business insurance lawyer, Patricia Graham, 28 years in liability law, called to inform me that my policy wouldn't cover intentional criminal acts, which meant I was personally liable for every penny. Even if you didn't know what you were serving, you served an unlabeled substance from a non-commercial source. That's negligence at minimum. The insurance company is denying coverage. You're on your own. She paused. I'd recommend bankruptcy. It's the only way to protect whatever assets you might have left. The health department's final report came back on Monday. Inspector Brennan delivered it personally, sitting across from me in my empty restaurant. The dining room looked haunted in the afternoon light, tables and chairs arranged for customers who would never come back. The substance in the container was 94% pure methamphetamine mixed with vanilla flavoring and powdered sugar, she said. Someone with pharmaceutical knowledge would have known exactly how to disguise it. Someone who understood flavor profiles and how to mask chemical tastes. She slid the report across the table. Mr. Fitzgerald, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I've seen food poisoning, I've seen contamination, I've seen negligence, but I've never seen anything like this. You served Schedule 2 narcotics to customers as a dessert ingredient. I'm recommending permanent closure of Ember and Oak and revocation of your food handler's license. The words washed over me like water. I was past feeling anything. How long? I asked. For the license revocation? Permanent. You'll never work in a commercial kitchen in Oregon again. Possibly anywhere. This is going in a national database. The business I'd spent 18 months building, the dream I'd worked toward for 12 years, was dead. The bank called about my loan. I was $320,000 in debt for a restaurant that would never open again. The commercial landlord wanted me out by the end of the month, and when I couldn't clear out fast enough, he started charging me per diem penalties. $2,000 a day. My staff had all found new jobs. Nobody wanted to be associated with the chef who'd poisoned his customers with meth. Adrian got hired at a competing restaurant and explicitly asked them not to mention our previous working relationship. Melissa was tending bar at a chain restaurant. Luis went back to school. They'd all scattered like refugees from a disaster zone, which, I suppose, they were. The restaurant equipment I'd carefully selected, the Italian espresso machine I'd saved for months to buy, the custom range hood, all of it went to auction. Sold for pennies on the dollar to pay the creditors who were already circling. Uncle Raymond finally called me again on Wednesday. I was in my apartment, surrounded by legal documents and bills I couldn't pay, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered on speaker with Detective Sullivan listening on another line like we'd arranged. They'd set up the trace equipment in my living room, Sullivan and Kowalski sitting on my couch with headphones. Leo. Raymond's voice was thin, exhausted, different. The confident uncle I'd known was gone. I'm so sorry. You have to believe me. I never meant for you to use it. The package was supposed to go to a different address. I wrote the wrong apartment number on the label. It was supposed to go to my business partner in Seattle, not to you in Portland. Just a stupid mistake. Wrong address on the courier form. You destroyed my life, I said. My voice was flat, empty. You sent me drugs disguised as a gift. You let me serve them to innocent people. You ruined everything I'd built. And now I find out you funded my restaurant with drug money. That makes me part of your operation. I know. I'll make it right. I have money stashed. Cash that the feds don't know about. $400,000 in a storage unit. It's yours. All of it. Pay off the lawsuits, the loans, everything. Just don't testify against me. Please, Leo. You're my nephew. You're the son I never had. Your family. Sullivan was nodding at me, signaling to keep him talking. Where are you, Uncle Ray? Silence. Then a long, shaky breath. I can't tell you that. But I'm safe. I have contacts. People who can help me disappear. Start over with a new identity. I can do that for you too, Leo. We can both walk away from this. New names, new lives. There's a whole network. I can get you papers, documentation, everything. We can start fresh somewhere warm. Mexico, maybe? Or Central America. I have connections there. People are hurt, I said. Michael from Table 9 spent 2 days in the hospital. His heart rate was so elevated they thought he was going to have a stroke. A woman with a heart condition almost died because her dessert had meth in it. A college student had a complete psychological breakdown. Those are real people, real victims, and I'm the one who served it to them because I trusted you. His voice hardened. You want to play the victim? Fine. But remember who paid for your culinary school, who co-signed your loans, who gave you $50,000 when the bank wouldn't approve your full loan amount, who introduced you to investors, who spent hours on the phone with contractors helping you design the kitchen. I built your restaurant as much as you did. And now you're going to burn me because of one mistake? One mistake? I stood up, pacing now, anger finally breaking through the numbness. Sullivan gave me a thumbs up. You've been dealing drugs for years. The DEA has files on you, surveillance photos, financial records showing $300,000 in unexplained income. This wasn't a mistake. This was your life, and you tried to drag me into it. You used my restaurant as cover for your drug operation. I never asked you to open that container. I never told you to cook with it. You did that on your own. You're the one who decided to create some fancy dessert and post it to Instagram like an idiot. You ruined your own restaurant, not me. If you'd just held onto the package like I'd planned, if you'd called me when it arrived, none of this would have happened. Where did you get the meth, Uncle Ray? Who's your supplier? How does the distribution network work? Sullivan was writing rapidly, signaling me to keep going, to push for details. You think I'm going to tell you that over the phone? You think I'm that stupid? I know you're working with the cops. I can hear it in your voice. That flat, careful tone. The way you're asking questions. They're listening right now, aren't they? He laughed, bitter and harsh. Doesn't matter. They won't find me. I'm 3 steps ahead. I've been planning for this possibility for months. New identity, new location, money hidden in places they'll never look. Tell them they're wasting their time. Click. He hung up. But it didn't matter. Sullivan was already on his phone, coordinating with the tech team who'd been tracing the call. We got a location. Burner phone, but he was calling from Vancouver. Canadian side, near the border. He's probably planning to cross into the interior, maybe head east. We're coordinating with RCMP now. They'll have units in the area within the hour. They arrested Uncle Raymond 3 days later at a motel outside Vancouver. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police found him in a budget motel near Chilliwack, registered under a fake name, with $40,000 in cash and a fake passport. Extradited him back to the U.S. on federal drug trafficking charges. The DEA had been waiting for a mistake, and using me as an unwitting distribution point had been it. They seized his house in Seattle, his Mercedes, his bank accounts, his country club membership, his golf clubs. They traced the pharmaceutical theft ring back to 5 other people, all former employees of the same medical supply company where Raymond had worked. The whole network collapsed. 7 arrests, 4 in Seattle, 2 in Portland, 1 in Tacoma. The distribution operation had been moving an estimated $2 million in stolen pharmaceuticals annually, and Raymond had been at the center of it. I testified at his bail hearing, sat in a federal courtroom and told the judge exactly what had happened, how I'd trusted him, how he'd destroyed my restaurant, how 3 innocent people had ended up in the hospital because he'd written the wrong address on a package of drugs, how he'd funded my restaurant with drug money, making me an unwitting participant in his criminal enterprise. The federal prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Karen Delgado, 18 years prosecuting drug cases, presented evidence of Raymond's flight risk, the fake passport, the cash, the contact with known smugglers who could help him disappear. The judge, a stern woman named Helena Vasquez, who'd been on the federal bench for 22 years, denied bail. Too much flight risk. Too many international connections. Raymond would sit in jail until trial. I watched them take him away in handcuffs, and he looked at me with pure hatred. No remorse, no apology, just rage that I'd betrayed him by telling the truth. My mother called me that night. She was crying, her words slurred with wine like they'd been for most of my childhood. How could you do this to your uncle? He's family. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. He needs our support, not our betrayal. He nearly killed people, Mom. He destroyed my restaurant. He used me. He helped you build that restaurant. You owe him everything. And now you're sending him to prison because you're too proud to forgive. You're just like your father, cold, judgmental, unforgiving. I hung up on her, blocked her number. She'd chosen him over me, chosen the drug dealer over the victim. Let her live with that choice. Let her drink herself to death in her little apartment in Beaverton while her brother rotted in federal prison. I was done being family to people who didn't know what family meant. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings. The federal investigation expanded. Financial forensics experts traced every dollar Raymond had given me. The $50,000 investment had come from a business account he'd set up using a shell company. The money had been laundered through 3 different banks before reaching my restaurant. The feds seized it all. Asset forfeiture. My restaurant was purchased with the proceeds of criminal activity, which meant the government could take it. Patricia Graham, my liability lawyer, fought it. Argued that I'd been an innocent party, that I'd had no knowledge of the source of funds. But the law was clear. If an asset was purchased with drug money, it could be seized regardless of the owner's knowledge. Everything I'd built was forfeit to the United States government. The trial happened 4 months later. United States of America versus Raymond Fitzgerald. Federal case, drug trafficking, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, money laundering, reckless endangerment. The trial was in the federal courthouse in downtown Seattle, an imposing building that made me feel small and powerless. The prosecution presented phone records showing hundreds of calls between Raymond and known dealers, financial documents showing the shell companies, the laundered money, the unexplained deposits, surveillance footage of Raymond meeting with distributors in parking lots and coffee shops, my testimony about the package, the restaurant, the contaminated desserts, the testimony of the hospitalized customers. Michael from Table 9 described his 2 days in the cardiac unit, the fear that he was going to die, the panic attacks that still woke him at night. The woman from Table 14 talked about her heart condition and how the methamphetamine had nearly killed her. The college girl, only 19 years old, sobbed on the stand as she described dropping out of school, losing her scholarship, the PTSD diagnosis that had destroyed her academic career. Uncle Raymond's lawyer, an expensive defense attorney named Marcus Brennan, who specialized in drug cases, tried to claim the whole thing was a misunderstanding, that his client had been holding the drugs for someone else, that he'd never intended for them to reach me, that the wrong address had been a genuine mistake. He painted Raymond as a victim of circumstances, a retired pharmaceutical salesman who'd gotten in over his head with dangerous people and had been coerced into holding product. The jury didn't buy it. The evidence was too overwhelming. The surveillance was too extensive. The financial trail was too clear. And my testimony, the restaurant owner who'd unknowingly poisoned his customers, was too compelling. The jury saw me as the victim Raymond had been willing to sacrifice to protect his operation. Guilty on all counts. I sat in the gallery and watched the verdict come in and felt absolutely nothing. No relief, no satisfaction. Just emptiness where the family connection used to be. The sentencing hearing was 3 weeks later. The federal courthouse was packed, media from across the region, the victims and their families, federal prosecutors, DEA agents who'd worked the case. Judge Vasquez looked at Raymond with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Fitzgerald, you exploited your nephew's trust to further your criminal enterprise. You put innocent lives at risk for profit. You showed a complete disregard for public safety and human life. You attempted to use a legitimate small business as a front for drug distribution. And when your plan failed, you attempted to flee the country rather than face the consequences of your actions. She looked down at her notes. The sentencing guidelines suggest 12 to 15 years. But given the aggravating factors, the use of a family member, the endangerment of multiple victims, the attempt to flee, I'm sentencing you to 20 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release. 20 years. Raymond would be 81 when he got out. His life was over, and mine wasn't much better. The lawsuits were still pending. I'd settled 2 of them for amounts that had wiped out what was left of my savings after legal fees. Michael accepted $150,000. The woman from table 14 accepted $80,000. The college girl refused to settle. She wanted her day in court, wanted a jury to hear how I'd destroyed her life. Her lawyer was talking about a $5 million judgment. My lawyer said bankruptcy was the only option. I filed in November. Chapter 7. Complete liquidation. Everything I owned went to pay creditors. The restaurant equipment was long gone. My car was repossessed. I moved from my apartment in the Pearl to a studio in Gresham that cost $800 a month and smelled like mold. I was 33 years old, and I had nothing. The 3rd lawsuit went to trial in February. I sat at the defense table and listened to the girl, whose name was Amber Wright, describe the panic attack she'd had after eating my dessert. The way her heart had raced so fast she thought it would explode. The way she'd been convinced she was dying. The hospital stay, the PTSD diagnosis, the nightmares, the therapy, the way she couldn't eat desserts anymore without having flashbacks, the way she'd lost her scholarship when she dropped out mid-semester. Her lawyer put an economist on the stand who calculated her lifetime earning loss at $2.3 million. My lawyer argued comparative negligence, pointed out that I'd been deceived, that I was a victim too. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. They came back with a judgment of $1.2 million. I didn't have $1.2 million. I didn't have $1,200. The judgment would follow me for the rest of my life. It's been 2 years now. The lawsuits are settled or discharged in bankruptcy, except for Amber's judgment, which I'm paying off at $200 a month, a payment plan that will take me 500 years to complete. Uncle Raymond sends letters from federal prison sometimes. Apologies, excuses, justifications. Claims that he never meant to hurt me, that he was trying to protect me, that if I'd just held onto the package, everything would have been fine. I throw them away, unread. My mother stopped trying to contact me after I made it clear I was done with both of them. She chose her brother over her son. Fine. Let her live with that choice. The restaurant space where Ember and Oak used to be is a yoga studio now called Peaceful Flow. I walked past it last week and didn't even feel anything. Just emptiness where the dream used to be. They'd painted over the exposed brick I'd spent weeks restoring, covered the windows I'd chosen to let in natural light, erased every trace of what I'd built. I'm 34 years old, and I'm starting over from nothing. Working as a line cook at a corporate restaurant in Beaverton called the Cheesecake Factory. Making $14 an hour, working the Friday and Saturday night shifts when the dinner rush means cooking 200 meals in 5 hours. The food comes prepackaged. The sauces come in plastic bags. The most creative thing I do is arrange fries on a plate and make sure the garnish is centered. But I'm employed. The restaurant chain didn't Google my name before hiring me, or if they did, they didn't care. I show up on time, I do the work, I go home. That's my life now. The head chef, a guy named Rick, who's managed corporate kitchens for 20 years, knows my story. He pulled me aside on my first day. I read about what happened, he said. That was rough. But you show up, you work hard, you don't cause drama, we're good. What you do on your own time is your business. It's not the career I dreamed of. It's not the Michelin stars or the James Beard nominations. But it's honest work. And after everything that happened, honest work feels like redemption. I'm clean. The investigation cleared me of any intentional wrongdoing. The federal prosecutors determined I was a victim, not a participant. The DEA closed their file on me. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a drug dealer. I'm a chef who got used by someone I trusted. But my food handler's license is still revoked. I can work under someone else's license, as a line cook, but I can't own a restaurant, can't be head chef, can't build anything of my own. That door is closed forever. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that Instagram post. The beautiful photo of the deconstructed milkshake tart. 43 likes in 10 minutes. 3 comments asking for delivery. The moment right before everything fell apart. The last moment I was still a successful chef with a dream and a future. Before I knew what I was really serving. Before I knew who my uncle really was. Before I learned that trust is the most dangerous ingredient of all. I saw Adrian last month. Ran into him at a grocery store in Portland. He looked good. Successful. He's sous chef at a new restaurant in the Pearl that's getting great reviews. We made awkward small talk for maybe 2 minutes. He asked how I was doing. I lied and said I was fine. He didn't mention Ember and Oak. Didn't mention the incident. Just said it was good to see me and walked away. I watched him go and realized I was a ghost to him. A cautionary tale. The chef who served meth to his customers and lost everything. That's my legacy now. Not the Oregonian Review praising my creativity. Not the packed dining room or the waiting list. Just the headlines. Just the disaster. Just the warning to other chefs. Verify your ingredients. Trust no one. Protect yourself. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.